All right, welcome to the week one power rankings. We'll start obviously with the minor leagues. Thank you for telling me I was muted. I was staring at a giant red button as if it was going to fix something without clicking it. Yeah, I don't really know how to intro this. We'll go over through each team what they did this week, and then once we do that, we will probably just preview what next week will look like. Some big matches coming up in week two, and then go to the majors, do the same thing, and then get out of here. All right, so let's start in the minor leagues. Technically, I mean, this one, I have to technically put them at the bottom. They haven't played this week. The Twisters were having some technical difficulties with their Switch. I think they're downloading it on the laptop. They're going to be 22, unfortunately. if they play this week, I'm sure they'll probably get a bunch of matches in, and that might fluctuate their standing. So 22 is kind of a default because they didn't play. Um, yeah, nothing more else to say. Let's get to 21 through 19. 21, we're going to start with the Tholo Muse. They had a real rough set against the Drifters. The Tholo Muse got double mercied. They played both games. They put up a total of 9 innings of hitting. And in those 9 innings, they didn't score and they got under 1 hit per inning. It was a rough showing for them. Yeah, they were only playing the Drifters. Um, the Drifters are a good team, as I'm sure you will see them a little bit later in this one. But they were a solid team. So, only one set to see, but 0-2 nonetheless. So they're going to be towards the bottom here. The Outsiders, a bit of a surprise here. I expected a decent start from the Outsiders, maybe like a 2-4, 3-3 with this lineup. Maybe steal one game from the Blues or the Flower Bombs. I expected them to do much better against the Jersey Smoke, who started off pretty well this season. Uh, so yeah, 0-6. It's tough to be ranked high. 0-6. They did have a tough start to their season. They do have at least a little bit better of an outlook coming up with them playing the Beavers and the Bards. Those are two teams kind of in the middle of the pack, so they might be able to pick up some ground real quickly. But if they do start off like 0-8, 0-10, 1-9, somewhere in there, it's going to be real tough for them to turn it around in a very competitive Bro Boo. The Seagulls are 0-2. This graphic was made prior to what's it called? Prior to today's games, like the week 2 games. So the Seagulls did pick up a win over the Drifters, so that would probably bump them up maybe 1 or 2 more spots. But of the ones that I had, the Seagulls haven't put up much offense, and honestly, that still holds true. They've played 4 games this season now, and 3 of those games have finished 3-1. The Seagulls have never scored more than 3 in a game. Their offense is lacking right now. That said, their pitching is some of the best in the league. They gave up 8 to the Trash Pandas, and since then they've given up 3 or less to 2 very solid teams in the Trash Pandas and the Drifters. So we'll see how the Seagulls fare as the season keeps rolling on. In the 18 spot, again, the Prisms are 0-2. It should be 1-3 now, as they split with the Saints. And yeah, that's the only one. They split with the Saints just now, and I just put those in. So again, they're 1-3. They got ran into by the buzzsaw that is the Flower Bombs, and they were part of the reason for the ego bump. But the Prisms can hit. They were showing that against the Flower Bombs, who have some suspect pitching, and they hit pretty decent against the Saints as well. So we'll see them, I'm sure. West Ham is now 0-6. I think they have the hardest opening of the season. If I'm West Ham, I am not discouraged in the slightest. I think this is a very different 0-6 than the Outsiders 0-6. Seawolves, Trash Pandas, and Stranger Things might be the hardest opening schedule anyone has in this league. I do think West Ham bounces back once they start playing teams that are not Seawolves, Trash Pandas, Stranger Things. I think they do bounce back. They played decently close in the first game against Stranger Things, and they also played the Trash Pandas real close, and the Seawolves pretty close in one of their 2 games as well. So like they're playing good teams close, and they're just not coming out with wins. I'm not as concerned for the Hammers as I think this ranking reflects. Highlanders are a little bit of a surprise here in the 16 spot. They had a bit of a rough start against the Drifters and Stranger Things as well. So they started out 0-4. They did not play as they played 2 close ones against the Drifters, and they played a little bit less close against the Stranger Things. But I have the Highlanders just on strength of schedule. I gave them the slight edge over West Ham. Again, I think this is another team that once they start playing a little bit weaker competition, I think they'll start making a run. Over to the 15, 14, 13, we got the Air Force Falcons in 15. Air Force just finished up a set of their own where they split, or no, sorry, they didn't split. They lost 2 to the Drifters. So the Falcons are 0-4. I think 17 through 15 have all played some combination of Stranger Things, Drifters, or Seawolves, and it's just not ideal for them. I mean, those three teams are a buzzsaw. So Falcons are sitting in 15. Again, another team that I think once the Falcons, the West Ham, and who did I just talk about? The Highlanders. Once those three play each other, I think we'll have a much better picture of what the Gravy Gold division is going to look like. The Ballers are over in Broboom. If I or no, sorry, they are also in the Stranger Things, and they were actually able to steal a win over the Trash Pandas. Got one game where they just shut them out. They pitched real good in that game. It was Gasser Morris, I believe, pitched that game for them. And that was a heck of an outing for them. Ended up stealing them a win, and honestly, take wins where you can get them when you're playing teams like the Wolves and the Pandas. So that's good for them. The Tims are in the 13 spot. They were 1-3 as well. There's a lot of 1-3s. Um, the Tims are starting there. Only again, they picked up a win against the Saints. We'll see how they continue on in the season. I didn't get a ton of info from them. I think it's a bit of a mixed bag from them. They didn't. They played two very high scoring games against the Bards. One of which, or both of which, they lost late, and then they eked one out against the Saints, and the Saints eked one out against them. So I wasn't a ton to go off of. If they could keep hitting the way they did against the Bards, they'll be fine. In the 12 spot, the Saints, as just mentioned earlier, just split a series with the Prisms, so they're 2-2 now. They come into the 12 spot. I also, another team that I don't really have a ton of info on. I don't really know what they're all about. So right now they're sitting in the 12th spot. I expect to get some more information on them this week. And I think this will be interesting. I think the Saints can make a decent run, especially if they play decently like they did in game one against the Prisms. We'll see if they could bounce back after their second game performance that just went in. The North Stars are a bit of a surprise down here, as I'm sure you could tell by my preseason rank of them being a top 4 team. They dropped 2 to the Bards, which I think surprised me, and then they only split with Jersey Smoke and the Beavers. Both of those, all of those, really surprising results. You know, occasionally you lose a game here and there, and those splits happen. But I was really surprised that they're 2-4 to start the season. I have them in the 11 spot only because of how close some of those games were, with the exception of one of their losses to the Bards not being very close and one of their losses to Jersey Smoke not being very close. But, we'll see if they can bounce back. Speaking of, this is the surprise so far of the minors, in my opinion, is Jersey Smoke. I know that record only says 3-3, but picking up wins, a win over the team like Portland, and picking up 2 wins against the Outsiders, who's going to be a real team that they need to beat. Teams like the Outsiders are teams Jersey needs to beat if they want to make the playoffs. So I think this is a surprise for me. I don't see Jersey Smoke kind of getting much higher than the 10 spot, maybe. Overall, I should say the 10 spot. I don't see them being a major contender in that Bro Boom conference. I think we'll get into those teams starting in the next slide. But I do think Jersey Smoke could very well spoil a playoff spot for 1 or 2 teams if they keep playing the way they are. I'm not doubting them. I think they make the playoffs, but I do think. Well, we'll get into it. Next up, 9-8-7. These are all. I realized this after I made this. These are all in the Bro Boom. 9, 8, and 7 of the Windbreakers. Windbreakers are also 3-3. They lost 2 to the Blues. They split with the Beavers, who you could also see on this screen, and then they 2-0 Jersey Smoke, so they had to be over Jersey Smoke. And I think that's really what separates those two is that series. The Windbreakers are another team. I expect decent things out of them. We'll see if they can actually make a push towards the top of this standings. If not, I do think they probably sit somewhere in that 4-5 seed-ish range for the rest of the season. Right now, they're sitting in the 6th. I see them being somewhere around that area for most of the season. The Bards are an interesting case. They were all or nothing. They beat out the North Stars. They beat out the Tims. And then they got kind of destroyed by the Beavers. So I'm a little surprised. They gave up 14 runs in both games against the Beavers. They gave up 9 to the North Stars. They gave up 12 to the Tims. They gave up 6 to the North Stars and 9 to the Tims again. So I'm a little surprised that they're up this high based on what I saw from them in the preseason. But I think they're out hitting. Their pitching's about where it was in the preseason, which is not good statistically. But I do think that if their hitting can cover them, they'll be okay. I'm realizing now I was highlighting the wrong team. Uh, I stand corrected. I was talking about the Bards who had bad pitching. The Beavers, I'm looking at my notes wrong because they're right next to each other. The Beavers did have a couple high scoring games, but they played some close ones. The Bards are the ones with the bad pitching. The Beavers are the ones that played a bunch of close games and ended up winning them. Falcons is giving me an update that Highlanders Seawolves is 2-2 top 7. This is what I'm saying. The Seawolves are an interesting team, and we'll get into them right now. Yeah, they're in the screen. Trash Pandas are going to be in the 6th spot. The Trash Pandas, I think, are going to be a dark horse and an overlooked team in a very strong Gravy Gulp. I think they're looked at probably as the 4th best team in the Gravy Gulp, which, by the way, the gap between 4 and 5, in my opinion, is huge. I think this is an all Gravy Gulp screen right here, and there's one more missing. And I think the gap is huge between these 3 teams, the one above it, and then everyone else below them. I think there's a huge gap here. But the Trash Pandas looked good. They took out West Ham. They took out Screech and Seagulls, and they split with the Ballers. And I think that split with the Ballers is really the only reason they're as low as the 6. They could probably be the 5 or the 4 if they swept the Ballers. Yeah, I mean, I just think that the Trash Pandas played really well against teams that they're supposed to play really well against. And when they start playing teams like I believe they're in our game of the week this week, which we'll get to in a minute, I do think this will be very interesting to see how the Gravy Gulp starts to shake out. I think all the really good teams played some of the lower teams, and once those start intertwining, it'll be interesting. The Drifters are sitting in the 5 spot. They are 4th in the standings as of right now. They are 10-2, or sorry, 8-2. They just played both of their sets. I don't know if they have 3. I think they played both of their week 2 sets. Beating the Seagulls, or splitting with the Seagulls, sorry, and then beating the Falcons twice. So they are sitting at 8-2. And I mean, if you could split the Stranger Things, that's a win. Tholo Muse Highlanders 2-0s are good. The 1-1 with the Seagulls a little surprising, but the 2-0 on the Falcons really just restores my confidence in them being where they are. They caught a slight ego bump, but um, I think that slight ego bump kind of just leveled the playing field, and I still think they're a quality team here where they are. The Seawolves are in the 4 spot. They have pitched well, with the exception of one game against the Ballers. They've pitched really well, and that was the bottom of their 4-man rotation. In their first 3 games, they gave up a combined 6 runs against West Ham and the Ballers. And then the Ballers put up 7 in their game 4. But nonetheless, they still got 2 wins. I think this is a team that can challenge the top team in the Gravy Gulp, in my opinion. But standings wise, they sit atop only because they are undefeated at 4-0. We'll see how the rest of the week's games treat them. And let's get into the top 3 in the minors. The first 2 are going to be Bro Boom. Flower Bombs are 4-0. I mean, post whatever ego adjustment meme you want to about the Flower Bombs. They just hit the covers off the ball. They played well. I think a little bump to the ego is not the end of the world for them. I think they'll probably have a quick fall off, somewhere around the. I think they probably go like 4-2 or something one of these weeks, and then they kind of figure it out, and then they start getting hot again. The Blues are my big surprise positively as well, alongside Jersey Smoke. I think the Blues are a big surprise as well. They started off hot. We'll see how they do once they start playing against some of the upper teams, but the outsiders and windbreakers are not slouches. So this is, I mean, it's promising that they too are both those teams. So I see good things from the Blues right now. These two sit atop the Bro Boom and are getting chased down a little bit by the Bards and by the Beavers. So we'll see how the Blues and the Bombs hold off the Bards and the Beavers in the Bro Boom conference. There's no way we didn't do that on purpose. That is ridiculous. Um, and then finally, we get to the preseason number one. Is still going to be my current season number one, and that is the Stranger Things. They just completed a set with West Ham, which was mentioned earlier, uh, and they 2-0'd West Ham. So they are now sitting at 7-1. Uh, Depending on how you look at it, in first place in the Gravy Gulp. I think you look at it as them in first place, but they are in first place in the Gravy Gulp, and they're in first place in these power rankings. I think until you can, and I mean, it takes a real wonder to beat them. I believe the Drifters pitched. Who did the Drifters pitch in their game that they won? It was game 2 of the season, and they just hit the cover off the ball. Actually, it looks like I thought it was a pitching thing, but now that I'm looking at it, it looks like it was just a hitting thing. They pitched. Yeah, they just hit the ball. I mean, they out hit them, which is rare. Usually, you don't out hit the Stranger Things. Usually, they're just a solid all around team. So, for now, the Stranger Things are sitting on top of our minor league power rankings. So here's the overall power rankings right there. Games to look forward to that I highlighted coming in here. Hold on. There we go. In the Gravy Gulp, there's one notable one, and it's going to be our game of the week. It is the number 6 Trash Pandas taking on the number 4 Sea Wolves. That should be one heck of a contest. And then we go to Bro Boom, and the Windbreakers are in 2 of my highlighted games right now. So the number 9 Windbreakers, they're going to take on not only the number 8 Bards, but also the number 11 North Stars. A lot of shakeup there in the Bro Boom in the middle. So the 8 faces the 9, and the 9 faces the 11. I also wanted to highlight the North Stars' other game, the 11 versus the 13 of the Tims, another one of those middle grounds. And then I also wanted to highlight the Prisms and the Blues. I know this feels a little off because it's 2 and 18, but I think the Prisms might be uh, might be another one of those teams that might come in and fight. So I want to see how the Blues do against them, and I want to see how the Prisms respond after the thrashing that the Flower Bombs gave them. The Blues are a different team than the Flower Bombs. So I want to see how they react to that. So I think that does it for the minors. Let's get into the major leagues. Let's talk the majors. We'll get into the crazy week that one of these teams has coming up. But first things first, let's start with our bottom 2. These bottom 2, I think it's a clear bottom 2 in my opinion, and here's why. The reason why I have these 2 as my clear bottom 2 was, how do we put this? The Bombers built their team around hitting, and they aren't hitting. The Bombers are averaging. Where is my screen for that? They are averaging just under 2 runs per 9 innings in their 4 games. They have scored a grand total of 6 runs this season over 4 games. It hasn't been pretty. So that's not great for them. And meanwhile, the Bulls on Parade, the hitting woes are just the same for them. Now, you might say it's a little bit of impatience. In my eyes, the BABIP stat in Super Mega Baseball, the batting average balls in play, is actually very indicative of your swing selection. Right, the better pitches you swing at, the higher your batting average balls in play is going to be. The lower it is, you're swinging at balls way outside the zone, and these 2 by far have the lowest ones in the league. Bulls on Parade hitting 231 on balls in play. and the Bombers are hitting 266 on balls in play. So I definitely think that these two are the bottom two. I think you can go either or in order, and when they do face each other, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Um, but yeah, the Bombers built their team around hitting. They're not hitting. And the Bulls on Parade didn't build their team around hitting. They built it around defense, but they aren't hitting it to give that defense a chance at anything. 12. We're going to put the Knights at 12, although at the time of building this, it made sense. I think they are probably 11 or 10 now, as the Knights took down Civilization. So they are now 1-1 since I made this. Um, so 1-1. And I should mention the Bulls on Parade are now 0-4. They played a real close game one against the front runners, and then they got blown out. The Knights are 1-1. They lost one to Bikini Bottom. They beat Civilization. Not much to say about a team that's only got 2 games under their belt. There's only so much I can say. But I mean, their team feels just slightly below average right now. We'll see how they do a little bit later. Their pitching's a little suspect. They're not they rely on a lot of contact. Or poor contact. They've walked a lot of guys so far. So I mean, we'll see. It's only been 2 games. I don't want to make too many assumptions on that. The Thunderhawks are another team that aren't hitting super well. He is the contact swing king. Evan is of the Thunderhawks. They are 0-2. They played 2 1-game sets. They were feeling under the weather. The other girlfriend's feeling under the weather. A lot going on there. But he's the other one that isn't hitting as well. His batting average balls in play is 264. So most of the red in our chart is, our 14, 13, and 11 seeds here. In the 10 spot, we got the Foul. The Foul coming off a bright performance, one could say, on the stream. I kind of expect them to go up from this. I think they've played well in their games somehow, despite not being able to see their screen. They're playing very well. They almost took down the Outlaws in an 11-inning classic. They played them close in game one, but that game one's almost so tough because they ran into the buzzsaw that was Pulo. And then they played Death real close for a game and then couldn't hold them for the second one. I mean, they've had 2 really, really close games that, they're 1-run games, and now it's 3-1, 3-1 instead of 1-3. So I think the Fouls still have an outside shot at being totally fine here. But the playoff is a little bit tighter in the major, so it's a little bit less room for error. We get into the 9-8-7. I think this is one of my more surprising screens. I didn't expect to see these teams so low, I don't think. We'll start with Death. They are 1-2 to start the season. They split with the Foul. And they lost to the Banjos. I believe, as I check my notes here, I think, yeah, they are the team that held the Banjos pretty close, other than not including the Outlaws. They held the Banjos down to only 9 runs, which is crazy that I'm putting the word only in front of 9 runs. But Death is sitting at 1-2 right now, and I expect them to kind of bounce back a little bit. I think they had a tough opener against the Foul, and then the Banjos are the Banjos. We'll see them later. The Aztecs had a rough start. I was really worried for them. 0-2, 0-2. And their pitching was like everywhere. Like, it was the worst pitching in the league. And then they faced the Bombers. They bounced back. So we will see if that is a sign of things to come, if they figured something out there. If dropping Alicia Woodrow was the right play, we'll see what the case is there. And then, yeah, my preseason 1 is now 0-3. They just dropped a game to the Knights. So my preseason 1 seed is really dropping the ball here. They got swept by the Tulips. It was close. It was, where are they on my sheet? Here they are. They lost 7-2 and 5-3. Neither of these games were really any. There was nothing bad about them, but they're 0-3 to start the season. It's a results based power ranking. So, I'm sure they're going to jump back up at some point. But at the moment, no panic alarms going off yet. But I think Civilization might have cause to be concerned soon if they don't start picking up wins. Into the 654, we have the Tulips. The Tulips are 3-3. They split. They 2-0'd Civilization. They split with Bikini Bottom, and then they are 0-2 against the Cringe Lords. So preseason rank 6. I actually feel really good about that. I think that is 100% fine. I think that 3-3 is probably about right. For them, I think they play a very even game. If they can let that darn crafty special or what is it, reverse splits get you. I mean, if you have a switch hitter, you're not hitting with them. If you got righties, you're not hitting with them. If you got lefties, you're not hitting with them. You're just not hitting unless you really can go right, left, right, left, right, left against him. You're gonna have trouble. Once we get late in the game because his bullpen is just all reverse splits. The front runners are now 3-0 as they took out Bulls on Parade for 2. I only have them 5 just because the strength of schedule is a bit low. Uh, the Bulls on Parade being that in the bottom 2 and the Thunderhawks being in the bottom 4. So that's really the only reason I have them so low at 5. I'm sure they could bump up a little bit more potentially. Bikini Bottom 4-1. A little bit surprised by them. I think Mist is showing out so far. I know he's currently playing or just finished up an XBL split with someone just now, or maybe I'm mixing him up with someone. Oh well. He a little surprised, but you know what? He's kicking some butt. He split with the Tulips. He beat the Knights for one of their 2 games that they've played so far, and he took down the Bombers and really is setting himself up well for the rest of the season. So let's get into the top 3. In the 3 spot, we got the Banjos. The Banjos are hitting the ball like there's no tomorrow. I'm going to lay some stats on you right now. First off, the bad, they're not walking. They have 1 walk over the 24 innings that they've played. They are the one of 2 teams that only have 1 walk so far this season in the majors. That said, they are also striking out almost the most. They have 20 strikeouts on the season, which converts to about 7.5 strikeouts per 9. And that is second most in the league. And it's only second most because the Fowl ran into Pulo and had 17 strikeouts. So, what are you going to do? So I think they should be leading the league in strikeouts, if not for that. Now, that's the bad. The good. They are averaging the most at-bats this season because they are scoring 14.5 runs per 9, 23 hits per 9, and here's the crazy one, 4.5 home runs per 9 innings, which is insane. So the Banjos got a little bit of an ego bump. Actually, everyone on this screen got a bit of an ego bump. So yeah, he's just hitting the cover off the ball right now, and he did it against good teams too. The Aztecs, Death, and the Outlaws he split with, and the Outlaws are going to be sitting in the 2 spot as they swept the Aztecs as well, and the Foul. So yeah, the Aztecs ran into a 3-2 buzzsaw here, so we'll see if the Aztecs end up bouncing back. But the Outlaws looked really good on Game of the Week. I mean, Game 1 was all pitching, Game 2 was some clutchness. I can't wait for the highlight video. If you haven't already watched the minor league highlight video, you should watch that. And I'm sure Champ is going to make a major league highlight Game of the Week video. I loved it. I think it's great. That said, the Outlaws are really looking like a complete team. I think. I think pitching and hitting both are going to be real tough to beat. And we'll get into the crazy freaking week that they have coming up. And then finally, the Cringe Lords are sitting at 1, the only undefeated team for those that have played, more than 4 games. The only undefeated team in the majors. And they are sitting atop the Gravy Gulp at 5-0, sitting just above those Outlaws who are 5-1. The Cringe Lords are just overall looking like a good team. They beat up on Thunderhawks and Bulls on Parade. Not great teams, but they also beat up, or not great teams so far, but they have beaten up on the Tulips as well, which does not come as easily. A 4-2 win and a 9-3 win. So it'll be interesting to see them. So here is your overall Major League Power Rankings. And let's talk about the crazy week we got in the majors coming up. There are some lower ranked games that we're going to see. Bombers against Foul will be interesting, 10 versus 13. The Bulls on Parade are going to face the Knights, so we'll see if the Bulls on Parade can bounce back against the Knights. If the Thunderhawks are feeling up to it and feeling a little bit better, they also play the Knights. That'll be interesting. So the Knights can really jump themselves out of this bottom half. The Aztecs look to bounce back against the Foul, so we'll see if they can bounce back. But and that's one of my highlighted games. But my other three highlighted games all include the Outlaws. As one boy, I hope he's still in the chat because man, oh man, does he have a week in front of him. He is facing the number 5 frontrunners, the number 1 cringe lords, and the Civilization, who I think are the 7 seed and probably a little underranked, and or underperforming. Not underranked, they're underperforming. So the Outlaws are playing Cringe Lords, Frontrunners, Civilization. They are gonna be having a week. Yeah, if he hasn't already looked at the schedule, he's about to right now, and it's gonna be a week, all right. But I mean, I think everyone's gonna have a week like that. Everyone's gonna have a week like that. I mean, you look at this. I don't want to face any of the top 7 here. I think the entire top 7 is tough here, and then I also think 8, 9, 10 are all tough, and even 12 are all really tough. And if Evan gets his contact hitting going, I mean, I don't want to face anyone in this league right now. And if you make a mistake against the Bombers and they start hitting, look out. So I mean, this will be it is going to be a dogfight here, and with only 8 teams making the playoffs, it is going to be a real fight for the playoffs. So this has been the Week 1 Power Ranking Show. If you want to see something else in here, feel free to DM me with any ideas and whatnot. I'll be sure to try my best to get it in here. Otherwise, thanks everyone for coming out. I think we had about 15 to 20 people come out at its peak. For the 10 of you that are still sticking around, I appreciate it. Yeah, go watch some baseball. I'm pretty sure someone's streaming something. Let me see if I can. Do I have a way? Do I know how to do that? I don't even know if I know how to. What's it called? I don't even know if I know how to send you to someone's stream. Let's see. Super Mega. Yeah, XBL is having a match of the week right now. Oh yeah, Corn Central. Yeah. Here, let me. How do I send people to him? Currently, Seawolves are taking on the Highlanders. It is top 2, so feel free to get over to the Seawolves. If I figure out how to send someone, yeah, an XBL match of the week is also going on right now. So if you're interested in some non-SMNL baseball, I can't really advertise that on this, but if you're interested in that, you can go check them out too. But Seawolves are playing the Highlanders. I think that'll be a good matchup too. So feel free to get into either one of those chats, and I will hop off for now. Have a good night, everybody.